Hello and welcome to Galactic Goddess Podcast and TV. Today's show is Divine Masculine Series Part 1, Protecting Divine Masculine Throughout the Lifespan. And our very special guest, Miss Angela, is a researcher and a journalist specializing in early childhood development, particularly interpersonal neurobiology. And so the forthcoming book with Dr. Darcia, and you can say her last name. Narvaez. And what is this called?
Primal Parenting.
Amazing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Radha. I'm excited about this topic.
You know, I'm so excited too. There's so much that we can talk about. So in this particular show, we're going to just dive into, the divine masculine starting from the womb.
Yes. Yes. So the conversation now with the Me Too movement and everything about men stepping up and speaking up for society and other men and women and everything and saying, how can we be better at being men? And it's like they're using the term toxic masculinity. I hate that term. So I think what they mean to say is masculinity in a distorted form that is toxic.
Yes.
Nothing toxic about masculinity, right? I mean, masculinity can't be toxic. It's a beautiful gift, masculinity, and so
it's gorgeous. It's a wonderful trait, and we love and support masculinity, and I think that's why we're bringing this forward, because masculinity is precious. We don't want to erase that out of the divine masculine. We want the divine masculine to keep the masculinity. But we're here to explore how the early roots stem from creating distortion. And really, we're talking about distortion. Men and women have both gone through distortion, both, not just one or the other. We're not here to polarize. Actually, our intention is to bring healing, education. And I'm so grateful, Angela, that you're here and you're so passionate about this, because men have been getting a lot of heat lately. And though this is super important to talk about these distortions that are coming forward, it's an opportunity for us to heal.
Yes. And I think that one of the dangers even though the Me Too movement is so important, and there's a lot of divine masculine energy behind the Me Too movement, a lot of love from fathers and brothers and men who want more, healthier society for women and children and everyone and other men. I mean, more like 90% of the violence against men is from men. So it's an issue that the divine masculine is also behind. But the danger is a lot of men are now feeling like, something's wrong with my masculinity, wrong with being a man, and that's a tragic message. So we want to clarify. I'm so passionate about clarifying. No, there is nothing wrong with your masculinity. In fact, the more you can embrace your true masculine essence, which is all about courage and inner strength, right? I mean, as the masculine traits, chivalry, leadership, all of those things are enhanced by the type of, what we're going to talk about today, the baby care. Like what happens in infancy when the attachment systems are forming.
Yeah, this is beautiful and so important. I really appreciate you reframing this. And especially what you said about there's nothing toxic about masculinity. And so as we explore and we go all the way back into the womb, we understand that that's the first place development occurs, right, for the masculine.
Right. Right. And a lot of what I studied with interpersonal neurobiology is something that came out of that was even like almost nothing is purely genetic. That's what they're finding now. Like even the whole field of genetics is turning to what they're calling epigenetics, and that's how all these different environmental influences affect the genes. So the genes are there, but they're being turned on and turned off to different varying degrees in different ways according to environmental inputs. And the environmental inputs that we're really focusing on are the emotional experience of the baby and of the developing baby in the womb. So even when you tease out in different outcomes, different mental health outcomes for people and children, and they do the twin studies where they're separated and they say, there's a 20% correlation in this particular trait or this risk for personality disorder or something. Even that, which is super low, right? I mean, 20% is so much lower than most people think of. Most people think of mental health disorders as highly genetic. They're really not. And my co-author, Darsha Narvaez, also points out in her book, her book that's already been published. We can put a link. We really should put a link to that too.
Yes,
it's such an important book. It's a difficult but amazing, brilliant piece of work. But what she says is that it's not even genetics, it's inheritances. So inheritance is just because you see something in the family line, that doesn't mean it's in the genes. It's in the experience that happens in the womb. It's in the experience that happens in the home after the baby is born. It's the perinatal period. But yes, so it does start in the womb, and that's what they're uncovering. But back to the twin studies. Yes, okay, there's some correlation there, but they had the same womb environment. And in a lot of aspects, that's one of the most influential things when it comes to certain mental health outcomes.
Yeah. It's interesting because even in energy work, there's we do baby in the womb clearing, because there's trauma that occurs when the baby's in the womb and the mother's stressed or trauma. Maybe she's going through a hard time, this all affects the baby in a much more impactful way than we're aware of.
Absolutely. That's so important. I'm so glad that you're doing that. Because that is what they are finding more and more in the sciences, in the developmental sciences, is the experience that the mother is having is shaping that baby's developing brain because of neurochemicals. I mean, every emotion that we have is setting off all of these neurochemicals in our body and brain. And if the mother is highly stressed, then those are the chemicals that the baby's developing brain is bathed with. So yes, that's also important. And what, the Me Too movement and all of, the questions that are coming up now, for lack of a better way to say it, because I'm sorry, this is the way that it's being said right now. What's wrong with men? What's wrong with, what is wrong with, why are they responsible for most of the violence? Why are they, just they're suffering. That's why, I had these, just the suicide statistics I pulled up here, they're the teenager, adolescent boys are, I think it's like 50% more likely, twice as likely to kill themselves than teenage girls. So these boys are suffering, and they're not allowed to express their emotions. And then, where does that leave them? It's really, really tragic. And then it's even worse for adult men. 75% of suicide victims are men. 75%.
Wow. It's amazing. Because when you suppress an emotion, we know this in energy work, it starts to create dis-ease, whether that's a mental, emotional, physical, spiritual dis-ease. And that's why it's so important to have the freedom to communicate, to share your authentic feelings. And that doesn't make a man less divine or masculine. I think men's true nature is to be just as expressive, as we are, we just have to give them the room, and also in early development, teach them it's safe for you to express yourself. That doesn't mean that it's just part of, we're all humans, so we all need to share. But men are always suppressed. You're not supposed to feel. You got to grow up, be a man.
Toughen up, just tough it out. That's the message that's given so much, just almost from the very beginning. And that's why, the answer to the question is, to the question of what's wrong with men is society.
Yes.
Is
toxic society.
Yes. Typically, our culture is the way that we raise boys and the way that we even treat baby boys. And there's some exciting new research that we have to get to about baby boys. But the way that they are, either their emotions are suppressed, or they're even punished for having emotions, or they're and they're not nurtured in ways that they need to be. They're not given the same nurturing. Typically, they're seen as, when they have the same, for example, a lot of my specific work is in infant and toddler sleep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Helping, yes. So I have an online course, and I have a private support group for parents to help their babies sleep that want to do it in a gentle way that's nurturing and supportive and never lets the baby cry, that is always responding to them. But there was this is just one example of how baby boys are treated differently. But there was a study that came up that showed, and I've seen it reflected with my parents that I'm coaching as well, that they actually have, the baby boys and baby girls have the same sleep issues. I mean, babies have, have sleep issues. Like, this is not a newsflash, right? So, however, the interesting part about that study was the parents of the baby boys saw the problem as much more of a problem. They said it was, such a big problem that's so disruptive to their lives, and it was like outside of their expectation. Like, this is a boy, he should be okay. He's tough, he's a little boy.
Wow.
No. Like, the girls that had were sleeping the same amount or waking up just as much, they didn't see it as much of a problem. They see it as,
interesting.
Oh, girl, we're gonna have to.
He's more fussy, right? Whereas, the boy should be perfect because he's a boy, so he should be tough and come out tough. And
yes, and they do. Baby boys actually do need more stress regulation as babies, but the study was just showing, like, when they're waking up the same amount, even when they're waking up the same amount, the parents see the baby boy waking up as more of a problem. So it's like the expectations for boys are very misguided.
Wow. I mean, unbelievable.
Starting from the very beginning.
This is interesting. And you were telling me earlier how boys need more nurturing when they're babies. They actually need more than women, girls rather. And they're more susceptible for stress, depression in the womb, birth trauma, or separation from mother. And so you're saying that this creates a trauma attachment. And how does that affect the brain? How does it affect the right brain in development?
Right. So this is what Alan Shore said. And he started leading this research, uncovering that because of the way baby boys, starting from the womb, like you said, their brains develop differently. Their stress regulation systems and right brain development is slower than girls. So they actually, and he, then his research, as it always does, sparked more research, and he found, like, I can read it here for you, but the stress regulating circuits of the male brain mature more slowly than those of the female, and both before birth, after birth, in critical periods. And scientists refer to critical periods of brain growth. That's something that, is beyond the scope of this interview. But those critical periods are really shaping the brain, and especially the attachment system and the emotional capacities, the personal capacities that'll carry the individual through life. Those are forming in those critical periods. And so that's why he emphasizes that. But he says that there's a differential structural maturation. So it's actually biological. It's the way the structures are forming. It's not circuitry, but it's the whole, like the structures are forming. There are gender differences in that. And what this means is, he says, due to the maturational delay, developing males are more vulnerable over a longer period of time to stressors in the social environment is what the scientists call it, but it just means the interpersonal between the parent and the baby, that interpersonal regulation and that they need, stress regulation that they need, and the interpersonal emotional response that they need. Like, when you're talking to a baby and smiling and you're doing the baby talk, that's building their brain. And what they're finding, both girls and boys, of course, but what they're finding is that baby boys need that even more. They need more. They need more, and they need it for longer. Yeah. But because of this weird, completely arbitrary, cultural idea that we had that boys should need less, they're getting less, even though they need more.
And this is creating attachment trauma, which affects relationships, obviously. When you get older, how does that, and then how do you expect them to show up when they have attachment trauma?
Right. So, I mean, how we show up when we have attachment trauma is we have deep insecurities and defense mechanisms that kick in. I mean, it's all tied into the amygdala, right? That brain structure that triggers our fight or flight. That stores the emotional trauma, any kind of traumas are stored there. And so men typically, or typically, I have to say typically because individual differences are, of course, override everything. But typically, if baby boys are not regulated emotionally and their stress regulation, then they're going to have so many more of those imprints on the amygdala to trigger fight or flight. And so fight or flight for a man, it looks different than fight or flight for women, but it's often the walling off, that's like walling off, shutting down, shutting you down in a relationship, or the fight, obviously, anger. And so, and a lot of men getting referred to anger management and all of these things, that's just attachment trauma. That's attachment trauma. That's anger. I mean, anger management, I'm sure is a very good thing, but I think it's just a scratching the surface. Really, it's about that amygdala getting triggered and the fear or the insecurity that's underneath the anger.
My gosh, that makes sense. That makes, and so it seems like we need to reframe everything, from anger management. I mean, really, it all comes back to trauma. And how we have not, it's really, I wouldn't call it toxic masculinity as much as the toxic society, and how we are taught these things that actually cause us trauma. And we're trying to reframe the way that we look at things so that we can all be more conscious, I think, really conscious. And from that space, have compassion and bring really needed healing.
Right.
Because I don't think the methods are working. A lot of the old ways of labeling and, maybe treating even anger management. If we come from a place of this person has trauma attachment, how would that be so different? how could they get, because really it's the nurturing that it seems to me that there's a deep need for nurturing and learning what that means to nurture, to receive that nurturing even later in life. How does that affect a person? Because children get angry when they don't get attention. They get angry when they don't get the love they want right now, so
Exactly.
of course. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm so happy that you're using the word nurturing. That is what it's all about. And one of the things that I think is so beautiful and important to embrace right now, with all of everything that's all of the talk around toxic masculinity and what it means to be a man. And the American Academy of Pediatrics, by the way, we have to link to that too. They just released a huge report about the ways that boys are raised that are toxic as a human being, like, as a human being, suppressing emotions and having to face this kind of reindeer games, bullying stuff. That's not natural.
No.
That comes from, there are very specific periods in history and anthropologically you can look at, that's been studied, but where it was necessary for men to do that, but that's such a small like tribal war thing. That's like 1% of our human history. Like most of our 99% of our human history is peaceful cooperation, coordination. Society had to be cooperative and empathetic in order to survive. So that's how we survived as a species. And so when men are raised with this high nurturing that I'm so passionate about, starting in babyhood, this high nurturing, then they become nurturers. And I think that embracing masculine, so part of embracing the divine masculine is embracing the nurturing capacity of man. I mean, think about it. Women are considered the nurturers, but really, men can be so nurturing. I mean, we're single ladies, you and I, like we love the masculine energy. There's I can't think of anything really more comforting and nurturing than being in a man's arms against his chest. Right? I mean, that's
the best.
That's a high nurturing masculine man is beautiful thing,
and healing,
celebrated. And that the American Academy of Pediatrics basically saying, this, how we're doing it, how we've been raising boys is wrong.
That's amazing.
They're coming out very strong on that, and it's all tied into the Me Too movement, but how the development is affected and how you build, like the way we've been doing it, like to put it in simple layman's terms, isn't building inner strength. It's building inner fragility.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That's not the true masculine. The true masculine is inner strength.
It's true.
And nurturing.
Very, like I think of when
like daddy picking you up and holding you. It's a different kind of nurturing, but it's just as important as feminine nurturing.
It's so beautiful. I have to say, so I just did a red eye over here to the East Coast, from the West. So on the plane, I was so surprised. There was I think there was 2 or 3 men who were traveling with their babies, and they had the baby in the front, and
the carriers.
I was in awe, and then when I had to get my luggage, I was just observing, and they were like so in tune with the baby. They were like talking to the baby, making sure one guy was saying, I couldn't get any hot water for the milk bottle. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was really moved. And I thought this is such a beautiful example of divine masculine in his truest form, because he's strong, and as strong as in he's holding his baby, he's caring for his baby, but so loving and even delicate,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful combination. I think there's nothing more beautiful than a man who is loving his child and his partner, you know, but seeing something about seeing that, and it's just, first of all, it's just like, and then it's like, oh, it's just amazing. That's what this world needs. And I felt somewhat like a universe validation, like about how men are showing up, how they're choosing to show up, even if they were raised in a way that was not
absolutely
the most supportive. They're choosing to create new neural pathways. They're choosing to create a new direction of being that divine masculine nurturer, you know, the strength. And I think of a divine masculine as being like a tree, like growing strong roots and growing strong, but also giving shade and allowing fruit and beauty to flourish, you know. And so it's a foundational thing, right?
I love that.
And it's important. So we need to start creating that nurturing for these boys. And that doesn't mean it's not just about like trying to push them to play with dolls. It's about nurturing. Nurturing comes from within. Like, I love you. Like, how are you? Like, hey, what's going on? Checking in. How are you? You know, checking in with a child. And so often, maybe people don't know that it's so important to check in and do eye contact and,
yes,
you know,
be present.
be present.
Even though I've been aware of, you know, emotional literacy from the very beginning of, my son is 12, almost from the very beginning, because I was studying with these thought leaders and going to the conferences in interpersonal neurobiology and psychology. And even though I've parented my son that way, he still gets this influence, you know, from society that it's different. Like when you're, like you're saying, having those conversations about feelings, asking about feelings, just like you were just describing, it's so different between my son and my daughter, because you don't even have to ask her. She's out with it, you know, like, you know, talking about her feelings, because that's a girl too. I mean, that's what our society says. But then with my son, it goes like this. It's, so how did you feel about that? Or, well, how are you feeling? You know, like you said, anything about feelings. At first he'll be like you just said something in a foreign language, like, well, I don't, you know, like, and then you just stay present and wait. And then it'll be something like vague, or, well, it was fine, or, yeah, I guess I didn't like it, or, you know, something like that. And then if you keep with it, then it comes out, and it's like, oh, well. And then as soon as you, as a parent, like if you can get them to that place where they're starting to tap into their feelings and express what's there. Oh, well, let me see. They don't even know at first. Like that, just that exercise of just getting them to tap into it and express it and talk about it, and then you just listening. That's all you have to do. Like, you don't have to come up with any magic, you know, solutions, anything. Listen, feel with them. Oof. You don't feel for them. You don't tell them what to feel. You know? But you just, whatever they say, they feel. You feel with them, and you validate whatever, you know, just validate. Like, if invalidate doesn't mean to say, oh, you're right, or right. It's just to hear, to listen, to understand, and to be understanding about it. And, oh yeah, I can see how, you know, I get that. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But it's such a simple thing, but it's just something that's very lacking. But you're right. Yeah, you're right on with that. So
amazing.
Important.
I'm just, it makes me want to have a child right now. Oh boy. I mean, because they're so precious. They're so precious little boys. You really got to, I saw that when you were like, stay with it. Like, don't stay with it with the boys, because the outer conditioning is so powerful and strong that it's going to keep hitting. It's going to keep, it's getting them from all directions. It is.
You know, I mean, you cannot escape it in this. I don't think how my child goes to a very good school in a very nice neighborhood, and it's small, and it's, you know, salt of the earth communities, you know, like, but he has gotten bullied. He's gotten, I mean,
Mm.
memed and degraded and ganged up on and
Oh.
in the face. Oh, I mean, the boys are getting this. They're getting it. They're
Mm-hmm.
getting the reindeer games, and they're
Mm-hmm.
getting the messages that
Yeah.
they're supposed to feel, and they have to tough up, and boys don't cry.
Oh,
All of that, they're getting it.
that's so harsh.
So we
And,
have to work
yeah.
harder. We have to
Mm-hmm.
work. We have to do more for boys, not less. We have
Mm-hmm.
to do more for boys from the time that they're babies.
Wow.
And I mean,
Wow.
I know we're getting short on time, and we're going to talk more about the babies maybe in the second.
Yes, no, that would be incredible.
Yeah,
I'm deeply
babies,
moved by
definitely
this.
all this research coming out showing like baby boys are having more.
Mm-hmm.
They have higher cortisol levels when they do experiments that
Mm-hmm.
show the stress response and everything. It's just amazing.
It really is amazing to, I mean, like, yeah, because this is the first time that I'm hearing that baby boys need more attention and focus, nurturing, excuse me, and that they have a harder time with, as you said, affective regulation or emotional states.
Yes, yes. And this is not me saying this at all. This is the research that's coming out.
Yeah.
Like Tronick, who was one of the original scientists famous
Mm-hmm.
for the still face experiment.
Mm-hmm.
The part of attachment, a lot of the attachment science is based on that, because a still face, when you just look at a baby's still face, that is the most stressful event. So yeah, so because they're used to the interactive,
yeah,
that's how they are receiving all this nonverbal validation and love and everything. Like, you're okay, you're safe, you're important, you're like their core self. It's all of that face-to-face interaction. That's the magic in building the brain. So they do these experiments called still face, where the mother will just be like,
oh,
and the baby's like trying to get her to respond and trying to, and pretty soon they get extremely dysregulated. Yeah, it's sad. It's like, we don't even want to talk about, I don't even know how those researchers do it, but like they learn so much important information about emotional regulation, affect regulation, like you said.
I mean, I'm just laughing because I think about my dogs and I'm like, hey guys, hi, and then they respond so much to my face already, imagine a child, imagine a child needs so much love, and understanding that the way that you raise your child in the very beginning, even from the womb, it's going to make a difference. So, it's important to be good to women who are pregnant. It's important to take care and love and nurture also the feminine while they're pregnant, so that they can create the really healthy hormones, to make babies to make a child that is healthy starting from the beginning. Because whatever they're flooded with, that's going to affect their entire life. And as I said earlier, the clearing the baby in the womb, that one protocol can clear so much for one person, because it really all starts from the womb. And so we need to support the mothers too, from the very beginning and through her process, because it's both, so it all goes together. It's very holistic, the way that I see it.
Full circle.
The full circle. It's a full circle. Anyhow, this has been an amazing conversation, eye-opening, having so much compassion for those little boys that become men, knowing that we can affect change and that it's never too late to heal, you guys. When men come in to do, healing work or any work or understanding, it really makes such a big difference in their lives, and that it is safe to start to heal and to awaken to new understandings. We're all awakening. We were not just taught this from the very beginning.
Right.
We're learning, and that's why the work you're doing in your book is so anticipated and very needed. So thank you so much, Angela, for your love, your passion, and this is gonna be so helpful to so many people around the world. Thank you for coming on and having this conversation today.
Thank you. And thank you for pointing out it's never too late. Even though I'm emphasizing so much the importance of babyhood, we don't want anyone to think that, oh, well, I know I didn't have that, so I'm screwed. No, you can always heal, and men can always recognize in themselves the way they were raised.
Yeah.
That's the way they're going to raise their kids, unless they take unless they take strong intention
Mm-hmm.
differently, and to say, no, I'm going to be different, and I'm going to raise
Yeah.
mine differently. That's what they can do. We can do it. It's empowering.
Beautiful. We can do it. So thank you for coming on. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you have any questions, we're going to be doing a series of these. So please drop them below or email me or Angela. I'll put her information as well and the links that we discussed earlier. Thanks again for joining, and so much love and blessings.